Welcome back to another episode of the D-League. Today, episode 28, and Bilal and we will be talking about something very important for video games, which is the camera. And, well, the camera pretty much is your field of view, so if you didn't have a camera, then you would not see anything at all. So, today we kind of go away from the mechanics and visual structure, and we're just gonna talk about camera in general, how it can work. And so I guess the most basic thing about the camera in video games is that you can have a first person or a third person camera, which pretty much means that first person view, it's yourself, like you're looking through the eyes of the character, so you just see what the character is seeing with his eyes, while a third person camera can be pretty much everywhere around or outside of the character. So that's pretty much the basic separation between a first and third person camera. And so Bilal, when you think about cameras, like what kind of camera, like angles or settings, can you use to, kind of give a different feel of immersion, I guess?
Well, I guess I don't want to go off into a entire structure here, but I guess I'll say, in terms of perspective or switching perspectives, I kind of separate perspective and position with saying the camera's mode and the camera's perspective, where the mode is kind of what the camera's doing and then the perspective is where it's looking at. So our perspective is basically if it's a top-down game or if it's a third-person shoulder game or a first-person game. So there's all kinds of stuff you can think of, but I think those are kind of the most common ones, right? Top down, shoulder, and first person, right? Because you have all the MOBAs are top down. You have first persons are obviously first person, which is Call of Duty, PUBG, everything. PUBG is also third person shoulder though, so there's that to keep in mind. So those are the most common ones, and that's what I think about with camera perspectives.
Yeah, I agree. Some games, pretty much games in the past, sometimes used fixed camera angles, where let's imagine you're in a room, so the camera would be in one of the in the corners of the room, so kind of see your character from that one angle only. It doesn't it only changes when you leave the room. So examples would be the old Silent Hill or Resident Evil games. Mm-hmm. But else, of course, first person view, it cannot kind of change. There's just first person view.
Exactly.
And concerning third person view, like you said, you can kind of put the camera anywhere you want, but I guess all cameras have kind of advantages and disadvantages, which we'll talk about in a moment. I guess. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say on you mentioning that kind of fixed position with old games. That's kind of where I think about camera, I guess, position or what it's doing as the mode. It's kind of like a behavioral mode, right? Where you said with Silent Hill or Resident Evil, that's what I kind of call an area-based mode of a camera, right? Which is the camera is kind of oftentimes it'll be sitting still, on the ceiling somewhere, and then it'll kind of look toward the player a bit, or maybe it'll just stay still and do nothing. So whenever you enter a different area, you might have a different camera perspective. And that's also apparent in some other third-person games. Like, I Pikmin 3 is the example I keep thinking of, which, by the way, had terrible controls. But I know there's one scene in Pikmin 3 where you run on this bridge or something that's underneath some sort of ridge. And when you walk into that position, the camera will assume this position of following you still, but it's kind of to your side. So you cross the bridge, and the camera faces the horizontal part of the bridge rather than the actual part of the bridge that you walk on. So kind of a perpendicular perspective. Anyway, but that's area-based cameras for me.
Okay. Yeah. I guess then let's talk about advantages and disadvantages of different perspectives for now.
Okay.
Later on, I guess we can also talk about what developers need to think about when doing cameras, because I bet you also played some games that had very bad camera controls.
Yeah.
Where you were very frustrated. So, but first, let's talk about the different. You called them perspectives. So let's talk about the perspectives first, and let's. I guess the most common one is over the shoulder right now with action games. Like, it seems like in the past you used first person view to do that.
Yeah.
But now action games, they are all kind of third person, because I mean, you see your character, so that's an advantage. So for example, let's say you're playing a Batman game and it's first person view, then okay, like, you don't see that you're Batman. Maybe you have a Batarang or whatever he's using as weapons. But else, yeah, you're kind of missing a bit of immersion.
Yeah.
If by using over the shoulder, you see a character, the movement. I guess you also see a bit more of the environment, because you can see a bit behind you because the camera is over the shoulder. So if something is attacking from behind, then like a first person view, you would just see, oh, you're getting hurt. So you would have like a hit indicator that you got shot from behind or something. But with the over the shoulder view, you just see, okay, somebody's just stabbed me in the back.
Yeah.
But one thing that is a kind of where it can be kind of a disadvantage is that you really have to have a good angle to like, if you position the camera very bad, then you see too much of the character and not enough in front of the character, for example, or if the camera is maybe a bit too far away from the character, then you just feel like you're controlling the character, but not like you are the character. Something like that. I think you understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So I guess that's kind of the dangers when using a third-person camera. Maybe also if you have something like maybe SWAT fighting, let's say, then it can be a bit unpredictable because you don't see where you're swinging, because your character is kind of in front of the attack, so you don't see your attack.
Yeah, I think I think to keep in mind with a third-person shoulder game is that you can kind of, if you do it wrong, you can be very polarizing to your players. So one thing to think about when you're making a game is that, I mean, when you think of making a game, if you're a programmer, you might not think about art at all, and you might just think, well, I mean, I programmed something and people play it for fun, right? But if there's a picture being rendered on your screen, there's a there are art features or concepts that will be applied to your game, and if you actually apply them, the game just will be better, which is just a reality to accept. And in a third-person shoulder game, you might like want to ask some photographer or artists or painters who draw pictures where you might include a person, and it might be based around how this person is in the environment. And in a third-person shoulder game, you'll want an actual good ratio of player to environment on your screen, because you don't want them to be blocking the player's screen, but you don't want the player to not really think that they're a part of the game, or whatever problems might arise, you want to be out of the way when when you have that character there. Because, I mean, if you do a first person, it could be a lot easier to not think about any of that, because now you don't have to worry about what your character is. The camera is just stuck in your face, and there's no player to worry about. But with a third person, like I said, well, the character might be in the way, the animation might look strange that close, you might not see your attacks, like you said, and how do you manage shooting somebody on your left if your character is on the left? Is there auto switching, or do you have a button for switching to the side? So all that I mean, it really brings in more complications. So just something to think about with a third-person shoulder. But it is, I will say, it is my favorite perspective, and not really on purpose. It just kind of happened to be that way because I like seeing the character and how they interact with the world, both visually and in an auditory way, and however else. So.
Yeah. I think like one problem that you can also have is if you have a small enemy, so let's say a dog, like if it's just as tall, like it goes to your knees. So how do you shoot that? So you have to kind of keep in mind, like how do you, if it's over the shoulder, how can you make the player see enough to shoot the dog?
Yeah.
Something like that. But that's I'm not that big of a fan of third person camera angles, but maybe it's just not like I don't like the genre, maybe that use third person views. Oh no, just over the shoulder, like it mostly most of the time it's shooter games, so
yeah. Like I thought I don't know. I find it pretty fun. Like the Mass Effect series was pretty fun with the third person perspective. Though I think in the trilogy it was more intrusive than in, for example, the new one that everybody hates, Andromeda. Like that actually had a not bad camera system anyway. But yeah.
Okay. Then shall we move on to the next perspective?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Then, just now we talked about over the shoulder, so let's have a talk about a camera that can be kind of over the shoulder, but that you can freely move around the character. So, I guess a camera that's pretty close to the character, but you can spin it around the character, let's say. I guess in that case, you kind of have the same advantages and disadvantages, just that maybe you can have your camera clip into the wall and then the player doesn't see anything because the camera is kind of stuck in the character. What else?
The main thing that I find games sometimes will do badly in a third person like that, where oftentimes it's like a platformer type of genre, right? Where the person's in the center and it's third person. Is that like the character might be in front of the target that you're looking at, whether it's like an enemy or I don't know, a button or something. Oftentimes like the game will have the character be in the way, so that's something to consider, is how do you manage that.
No, that's I don't know, and I think some like adventure RPGs, Does Skyrim use a camera like that?
Yeah,
I thought so.
Skyrim and Mass Effect Andromeda both do a thing where it's third-person shoulder in combat. It's actually opposite. So Andromeda will do third-person shoulder in combat, but third-person out of combat, and Skyrim will do the opposite because guns and swords, right? So Skyrim makes the character be in the center because you're going to be hitting them with swords anyway. So if somebody's that close to you, you're going to be able to hit them without having to worry about you being in the way.
Okay. Yeah, I guess in that case you just need to see where the enemy is.
Yeah.
So to keep an overview. Yeah, I guess that's one of the advantages is that you give the player the freedom if you can move around the camera, that he can. Well, you can look at the world, like the game world, from different angles, not just like from the front, but like maybe a bit to the left or right, or maybe if you run away, then you can turn the camera if the enemy is still chasing you, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess some games also use it when riding a vehicle, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in a car and then you can spin the camera around. So it's kind of like looking around with a normal character, just that in a vehicle it's like the camera spinning, so you can see the surrounding instead of like what's directly next to the character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Else, I think there's at least for me there's nothing else I can say to this like very close third person camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in terms of perspective, I think that's all.
Next, I have this bird view where it's kind of it's not directly top down but a bit angled, so it's mostly a camera angle that's used in 3D strategy games, for example.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, in that genre, it's all about seeing as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like in other genre, you might want to surprise the player with an enemy being around the corner or coming up from behind, stuff like that. But in a strategy game, you want the player to see everything, because else the player doesn't feel like being in control. I mean, if he's kind of the commander and he sees everything, and so he commands his troops to fight effectively. But
I think obstructing. I think obstructing the view by stopping the camera from going somewhere or seeing something in in any bird's eye view game is kind of fundamentally strange, because a bird's eye view exists so that you can see a lot around your character or around whatever it is you're looking at. For example, in Pikmin, for example, it would be around a character, but in StarCraft, it would be around whatever you're looking at on the map. That's why they. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that some strategy games, you have things like trees where you can hide units behind. So, some games, they just still give you the that possibility. I mean, in games like StarCraft 2 or Warcraft 3, like the camera cannot be turned 360 degrees, so you cannot like spin around and around and around and look at everything from every angle.
Yeah,
it is still fixed, like the camera is fixed, but you can you can zoom in and out a bit, not completely.
Yeah,
but you can, and you can also like turn the camera left and right. So just a bit. It's not like you can turn it completely 180 degrees. Just a bit left or right. Some other games do it differently. Like for example, Machines Wired for War, where you can zoom very far in, zoom very far out. You can turn the camera completely however you want. It's very, very, very flexible.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess it's also a design decision how you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, else, for example, if you hide a unit behind a tree, then in StarCraft, it makes sense, because if the enemy is just moving, then he's getting shot and he doesn't know where the shots are coming from, for example. But if you can just turn around the camera 180 degrees and then you can just see, okay, there's a marine hiding behind the trees, or some structure or something, then he knows what's up, so there's no surprise effect, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, StarCraft is kind of all about just making it, kind of turns all the concepts of like high ground and vision and all that into kind of more of a chess-like gameplay, right? I mean, it turns them into more of statistics than actual physical 3D concepts.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you with a gun you cannot hit somebody on a cliff, but he's 50 meters up the cliff, and you cannot see him, but you can still shoot him. Stuff like that doesn't make much sense in that case. Yeah, so with this bird view, I guess, like you also have these horde survival games, for example, that use it. Yeah. Because you get swarmed by enemies, so I guess that's the go-to, or one of the go-to perspectives for giving the player as much information as possible.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, those are kind of all the things I expect. I guess there's also like twin stick shooter and a lot of other small things, I think. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's all I have for top down.
Okay. Yeah, then I see. No, I wouldn't call it top down actually, because
it's
top down. I would think it's a flat, it's kind of 2D then.
Yeah.
Because bird view, it would be kind of tilted, so you're seeing the game from a from a diagonal perspective, but top down,
yeah, I mean, top down is typically 90 degrees, and then
so in that case, I guess that's good for 2D games, where maybe you use sprites, and then you just need to draw, for example, a tank from in 8 directions or something. I think top down is pretty much I would say the poverty version of bird view, because you have one fixed angle, you cannot turn the camera in most cases, but you don't see that many details. I mean, a 3D tree looks the same. Like, if you look at it from top down, it kind of looks the same in every direction. But with a bird view, like if you zoom in or out, or turn the camera a bit lower or higher, then it looks different. And for top down, I guess it's more for really 2D games. So something where you maybe don't want to put that much time into details.
Yeah.
I guess there's nothing wrong with top-down else, just that it might look maybe a bit undetailed. I mean, even games like StarCraft, like StarCraft Brood War, or I guess Command and Conquer is kind of bit strange, like the old Command and Conquer games, because they were kind of top down, but also like the environment was drawn sometimes with like a 3D effect, kind of. So, but that's I guess top down is okay. Else, yeah. Then let's talk about how the player can kind of use the camera, or what you have to consider when you implement a camera. Is there like do you want to start with that, or should I just keep going?
Sure. I mean, you want me to? I guess I can go into like the three concepts of, or I guess the three concepts I have of a camera.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So, in my opinion, unless I'm missing something, which I don't know, it would be great if somebody would prove me wrong. I think that a camera like control is generally based on, like I said earlier, mode and perspective, but then also control, where the mode would be the camera's kind of interaction with the world, including the character, which is, it needs to be appropriate for the scene. And so that means like you don't want to have a strange mode for what it is that you're supposed to be seeing. For example, if there's a cutscene and you're still in first-person mode without any real movement between, that might be strange, unless your character is, all the positions are correct. I mean, it totally depends on what you do. So, I mean, there are tons of games that'll keep you in first person and they do it well. So that's just something to keep in mind. But modes would be, cutscene or area-based, or following the player, or maybe they're attached to the player. And the difference between following a player and attaching to a player is, when they're attached, it's typically the character doesn't really stray at all from the camera. The character will stay in the same position of the camera and it will aim to keep it that way. Whereas if you're following the player, it might kind of slowly follow the player. That's kind of a... What game does that? I mean, that's kind of what I described in Pikmin 3, where it'll follow the player and then kind of be area-based at the same time, depending on where you go. Okay, so that's mode. It's kind of what the camera's behavior is. And perspective is what we talked about with where the camera is looking from, basically, which is, first person, top down, bird's eye view, shoulder, and centered 3D third person. And so that's kind of like what the player's visual experience is going to be. So you want to make sure that that's clear and it keeps the player like immersed for how the game should feel. So if you're supposed to feel like you are a character, you're probably going to be first person or third person, maybe like third person shoulder. But if it's something like an RTS like we talked about, then you're not particularly any character on the field usually. I mean, I don't know any RTS where you actually are supposed to be the person you're controlling. I mean, for example, in StarCraft missions, you're kind of just a commander with no name. So in that example, you're always controlling people, so it doesn't try to do a perspective where you are, like Jim Raynor, for example. And then finally, it's kind of longer than I thought, but finally there's control, which is how the player's communication with the camera. So that's like how the player controls the camera, basically. So moves it, rotates it, etc. And it's really crucial that this does not annoy the player or feel tedious. So maybe there's no control, which and the whole thing is area based, for example. So wherever you walk, the camera will determine what to do. Or maybe it aligns behind the character, or you're allowed to align it behind the character. So like in, I think, Pikmin, or in Super Mario, like Sunshine, you could put the camera behind you. And and you also have like pan and rotation. So pan is like a common thing in RTS, and rotating is also common. But for example, in Super Mario Sunshine, you were able to just use the camera stick to go 360 degrees around. So yeah, those are the main three aspects, in my opinion, of like how to make a camera actually good and what to consider in a game camera. Yeah, that's all for me.
Yeah, I can agree. I guess I mean, with the camera, like you said, it's about rotating, panning, or like in a strategy game, you just move it left, right, up, down.
Yeah.
It's always the same angle, so it just kind of moves on the X and Y axis.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I guess like controls is up to the developer to do.
Yeah.
And I think in that case, concerning controls, it's more about kind of finding solutions to, let's say, special situations. Like I said before, the character is close to the wall. You're using a third-person camera, like over the shoulder. What happens if the camera will be inside the wall?
Yeah.
Like, does it go into the wall? Is there like collision where it stays? It doesn't go through the wall. It just kind of sticks to the wall, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the problem that if your character is hugging the wall, then you don't see anything because the camera is inside the character. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I guess with cameras to have a good let me just call it, to have a good camera is to not block the player's view.
Yeah, exactly.
I know that in, for example, in fighting games, some developers, they put stuff in front of the characters that are fighting. So let's say there's some table or some crate or something, then suddenly you don't see low attacks because the table is blocking the view
Yeah.
of the leg or the fist, or the crate is blocking the whole character, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be very frustrating because, like, then as the other player, you don't know how to approach. You don't see what the other guy is doing. And yeah, I guess it's the same with third person, like other third person games where you're closer to the player, where I guess what game really had really terrible camera controls? I guess some people complained about things like Resident Evil, where you had fixed camera angles and then you go around the corner and you run into a zombie because you didn't see it. What else?
Really bad. I can't. It's been a while since I played one with a really bad perspective, but I think it's probably one of those stupid Disney movie games from like 2005. I think Toy Story 2 had some annoying, and I played that forever ago. It might have had some annoying camera perspectives, but I can't think of any.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess the early 3D video games, they like some really had
Yeah.
terrible angles. But
Speaking of which, there actually I just realized I have this game box for this really old game here that I just saw. It's Galapagos Mendel's Escape. Have you ever heard of that game or no?
no, I have not.
It's this game. Oh man, it's so cool, but it's so the camera angles are hilarious. It's like it's area based, right? So the camera will kind of be wherever. It depends on where the character goes. But you don't control the character. Like, your character kind of walks around like an idiot, and tries to figure out where to go. So your objective is to like control where he can go so that he moves to the right place. Basically, it's kind of like a Lemmings game, right? But it's like 3D, and so the camera will like follow him around, and sometimes it'll just be in these like awkward positions, and it'll be annoying to like look at where he is. For the most part, it works, but something to consider is when you're doing an area-based camera, stuff should not fly in front of the camera unless you are doing like a cutscene. But if like something is like orbiting, for example, and kind of just passes by the camera over and over again, that's just tedious and stupid. Don't do that. And yeah, I mean, you always want the camera to be in a place where it's clear what the character is supposed to be doing, and you can see everything that you need to access in that world or scene. So that's an example. Galapagos, look it up.
Yeah, I guess one example that kind of is bad for new players is when did they start using those levels? In Crash Bandicoot, in the Crash Bandicoot series, in the first few games, you had some stages where you ran away from a bear or some rock, and so you ran towards the camera, and that then you had obstacles like pits or like electric fences standing around. So as a new player, you kind of had to slow down from time to time because you just expect something to pop up. I mean, Crash would see the obstacle, but you can't because like your field of view is more to the like behind the character than in front. So it's just imagine you play a racing game and you're supposed to like drive around that track, but all you can see is what's behind you and not what's in front of you. And so that in that case, I mean, if you know the level layout or you played the level, like then it's alright after some time. Like you know what's coming up. But as a new player, it can be very frustrating where you just run and then you didn't react in 1 second or half a second to stop and go a different direction to evade the fence or like the pit.
Yeah,
and then you die, and then you have to do it again. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
so. Yeah, I guess I didn't really like that as a child.
Yeah, I've seen that in a game before. I can't think of any examples of that, but I have seen that concept before, where you're looking the opposite way of where you're running, and then you get hit by an obstacle. I know one more example of kind of a shitty system was, if I'm remembering correctly, I think the first boss in Pikmin 3, I think the camera perspective sucked almost as much as the fact that they had removed the control stick to move the Pikmin around. No, nothing sucked as much as that. But the camera perspective was like that. There was this lobster guy that you had to hit with the rock Pikmin, and he would kind of crawl around. The camera did appropriately follow him around, but the reason why it was annoying was because in Pikmin 1 and Pikmin 2, you were always given like perfect camera controls. You could always see where, I mean, it got kind of tedious, like aligning it to your back a lot, but you could always see where the boss was, and if you were good, you could play correctly despite, pressing, going to your back. Whereas in Pikmin 3, they've kind of reinforced this concept of being a stupid player and just charging your Pikmin at whatever the thing that the camera's showing is. So this lobster would crawl around the wall, and your camera would constantly be rotating to look at him, which is irritating because in Pikmin you have to account for not only your 3 characters, but also your 100 Pikmin. So, yeah, just something to keep in mind is that in Pikmin it's almost like an RTS where you might want to see everything inside of the boss field rather than, be forced by the game to have your hand held. Something to think about.
Yeah, else can't really think of another bad example. A third person camera. I mean, first person view you cannot vary. You can't mess it up, I guess. What else?
Unless
For third person, I just know that people kind of got angry about Resident Evil and Silent Hill cameras because they were fixed angles, and like I said, you go around the corner and then there's an enemy and you didn't see it, or you get hit by something you cannot see from that camera angle. Yeah, so some people were pissed about that, but else, I bet there are some very shitty 3D games that had terrible camera. I mean, there are so many bad video games. But else there's nothing else I have to say concerning camera, the camera mechanics. Is there anything else you want to talk about cameras, or?
No, I think I am all set. I mean, we were just talking about bad perspectives after we talked about everything else, so I think I'm good.
Then let's wrap it up for this week. That's been episode 28 of the D-League. Was a pleasure to talk to you again, Bilal, as usual. And
you.
I hope our listeners also enjoyed our podcast. And if there's one game that made you very angry because the camera sucked that hard, then let us know. If there's anything else you want to comment, then feel free to do so. And otherwise, I hope you tune in again next week. And then I wish you a nice week, and see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.